And we are back, and we should be dropping right into the match here. That's me, aReNGee again, and we've lost Bear just somewhere along the way and gained ourselves a Rhino. So Rhino, how you doing?
I am doing well, all things considered. I am not in the tournament anymore, but of course, it's not that easy to get rid of me, is it?
No, evidently not. Well, we'll jump right into it here. We've got ourselves a um, Stone Scar Burn deck, or a Burn Queen deck, sorry, against a Combray aggro deck. So the action's going to be fast and furious. We've got Calcier starting off with a quick start with some Grenadins, following up with deciding between the Instigator and the Favor, decides to go with the Instigator.
Right. If you go favorite here, it means you have guaranteed back-to-back champions of chaos that are 4/4 overwhelms, or you can just go with the better board presence. And he just went with the immediate board presence.
Yeah, decides to push the damage, can always Caleb's Favor on this turn. This would have actually worked out better if Desengrande played a unit, as he drew the Suffocate that he could have used with the additional power in order to push the damage through anyways. However, the Marshal comes down and doesn't get the greatest block. Trading a Desert Marshal for just a 1/1 token is never quite where you want to be.
Right. Desert Marshal used to be a 2/2, and that minor nerf showing it off how impactful even the smallest of changes can be in these kind of.
Well, speaking as an Armory player, with the Artisan nerf from 2/2 to 2/1, I can tell you that 2/1s get eaten by Vera's favors and trade with tokens a lot nowadays, and that's never a great place to be.
All
But
right, Calcier hitting the unfortunate fourth fire source. Not really what you want with an impending doom in hand, but still has commanding board presence here. Kind of hard to tell what's going on in that Combray player's hand, but it looks like more Desert Marshals. We do not have their hand cam, right?
yes, if Desengrande is able to actually land something like Siraf won't do it, but his Sandstorm Titan would actually stabilize the board quite well. And it looks like he goes with the Fogan's Staff, which sort of stymies Calcier's offense.
Yeah, this has got a board of 3/3s, and it turns out four toughness goes a long way against that. Calcier does get to establish another 4/4 here, but Desengrande may be able to stabilize here.
Yeah, Calcier is really hoping to draw the extra Shadow Sigil to get that impending doom out, but it's not really going to allow his current board to attack, especially with this Vanquish taking down his remaining champion.
Yeah, although a rapid shot off the top is definitely going to let him be able to attack, and it does show your opponent, hey, I've got something, and you've got to be a little scared of, hey, my opponent had 5 power and they only used 2 of it. They could have more fast spells here, but when you're the aggressive deck, you've got to stay aggressive, and Calcier hits the A space.
This has got to be a suspicious attack, especially since he's been holding back exactly these units into this board for a couple turns now. But I don't think you can do anything except block here as Desengrande, so he gets the positive trade regardless.
Right, right. Yeah, if you're Desengrande there and you don't block, you're just taking way too much damage. You're putting yourself in torch range. It's kind of unfortunate that your 5 power play was literally just use Vanquish.
I think the non-block would have actually been just lethal with the additional rapid shot damage, but
Yeah,
with just a
exactly.
singular blocker and the draw of another rapid shot, it looks like Calcier is going to close out this first game in short order.
Right. Calcier got off to a nice start there, even though they didn't quite have the power development. He still had units on board that match up very well against those Desert Marshals, and just got to push through enough damage before his opponent could establish any bigger turnaround cards or life steal of any, or life gain, I should say, of any kind.
So we're just going to take a moment here while we're looking at Kelsey's sideboarding. Unfortunately, his opponent and most of the opposing team isn't actually able and slash or willing to stream, so we can't get you that second hand cam match. Um, and additionally, to note, this game is still our final best of 3 of the day. All games from here on out will be best of 5, if I'm not mistaken. So we've only got, if Calcier wins this one, he's going to take the match.
Okay, so it looks like we're just waiting for sideboards, and the Burn Queen player basically taking out all of its kind of low impact units. I saw they trimmed away some Grenadin drones instead of opting to try and go wide. They're just going to go tall with a bunch of reach. Just use the Ronin's Pyro Knight's keeping all the rapid shots, suffocates.
I think I speak for everyone in the chat that when I say that I really hope that he fixes up those mismatched premiums.
Oh yeah. Ugh. Ugh.
This is a tough list to look at.
I
Um,
understand the clone function isn't ideal, and then it gives you split premiums. And yeah, leave that feedback. The feedback button's important, but it doesn't fix it.
but
What
yeah,
can
you're
you
right.
do?
It looks like he goes with a more sort of mid-rangey followed by burn plan rather than going with the go wide strategy that is sort of the bread and butter of the queen decks, getting out to an aggressive start and finishing his opponents off with a queen attack. He's opting to go for a more top curve strat. Oh no, declines the Soulfire Drake and moves back down the curve for an extra Grenadin drone. So I,
Right.
I take back what I said
Sure.
a bit.
Soulfire Drake can be sad times against Sandstorm Titans and Desert Marshals. We've seen that very sad line of play many times in tournaments where you slam down the Drake and the Desert Marshal ruins all of its hopes and dreams. So not too unreasonable to cut that out against Cambrai.
Yeah. So it looks like we're getting a challenge and we're heading right back down to the match. Um, Aggro Cambrai, if it can get a couple of good units in front, should be able to stall the aggression. We'll just have to see if Calcier can get out to another fast start. And
Yeah, and Desengrande looks like he came pretty prepared for this matchup. Just looking at his sideboard, he's got some Healer's Cloak, some Karmic Guardians, and some Lumen Defenders. So the life gain's there. Karmic Guardian, an interesting uh, appearance, but hey, that with a Vodkin staff is definitely going to gain you some life. So I wouldn't be too shocked to see that come in.
yeah, and if he wants to go that route, he has two harsh rules that he can side in to sort of reset the board in his favor once the burn deck's played out its hand. I'm not certain that that'll be his strategy, as you
Yeah.
sort of want to secure the board and then sort of take the advantage from there with your superior board presence and sort of
Right.
resetting the board, then not having enough pressure, and then the burn queen player sort of draws burn would be a horrible way to go out of the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think I would go the harsh rule route just because, as you said, you need to. It's more about controlling the board via your own units and applying enough counter pressure, and you really can't do that if you use harsh rule. The burn deck will, even if you stop their initial unit assault, will still find ways to end the game if you just try and stabilize through harsh rule.
Okay, and here we are with game two. Calcier is up a game and luckily is on the play again. This hand, though, I don't think he'll be keeping this one.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
never mind.
he disagrees, slams it down. It's got Oni Ronin and some things to push through Oni Ronin, and I guess that's good enough.
Well, from my perspective, I would have expected him to look for another units, but it's possible that Calcier has determined that Rapid Shot is the card to have in this matchup to allow him to push through the various units that Desengrande is going to be throwing in his way to slow him down, which is a reasonable assumption.
Yeah, Calcier just knew that he was going to draw more Oni Ronins off the top, so this was just the perfect keep, even with the mismatched rapid shots.
Is there any hand that you could have as Desengrande that would convince you to block the Oniron in there?
Ooh,
Probably not, right? You're trying to ramp into your threes and fours and just stall the board out completely, right?
yeah, especially if your hand is an awakened student, you immediately get to make it a 3/3 by keeping that initiate. There may have been hands where you block with the initiate there if your hand's just a bunch of low drops that like
Well,
extra initiate.
Calcier's certainly drawing in ways that make this hand look quite potent. He's going to be able to attack with both here and trade that rapid shot up for an awakened student, assuming that Desengrande decides to block.
Yeah, the key to being a very strong aggro player is being able to manipulate the top of your deck. Drawing well as an aggressive player is of skill. Don't
Something
let
that I know
anyone,
all too well.
yeah, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So he's building up those war cries. We'll see how relevant those end up being. They don't apply to burn spells, luckily for Desengrande.
So one thing to note is that he is chewing through his cards in hand really fast. He can't play that Furnace Mage next turn and Rapid Shot traded up for just a 2/2, or sorry, just a 2-drop. Um, so if a Sandstorm Titan does come down and he runs out of Rapid Shots by trading this one off here, Desengrande may be able to take a an advantageous position in the game.
Yeah,
Dep-
Calcier is running out of gas quickly, and that flame blast does not qualify as gas, as he is still 2 fire sources away from even being able to cast it.
However, he does have 5 Warcry triggers on top of his deck, so depending on what that hits, uh, the game could turn pretty quickly. However,
Yeah,
this Combat Healer is going to stop the board and prevent Calcier from putting further aggression on the table.
yep, Combat Healer doing its job, stabilizing the board, gaining some life, and Desengrande, while seemingly under assault for those early turns, is sitting pretty at 20 life with 2 very good blockers in play. And Calcier's got to decide if is there any reason to even play a Furnace Mage on this board? I've got to say no.
Well, another thing that you could be considering is just pushing the attackers in and using Torch to finish off one of the blockers. Probably want to take that Karmic Guardian down before it can start gaining Desengrande his life,
Yep. So
but
Desengrande
declines to
sniffing
block
that
with
out.
it.
Yep. Yep. Sniffing it out. Probably has a weapon for the Karmic Guardian is and decides, you know what? I can afford to not block with this here. It's gonna crack back for more life gain anyways in the future. So it's not worth preventing the 2 damage that Oni Ronin's pushing through here.
Playing Furnace Mage there made a little bit more sense after the block, since he could have pushed through the 1/4 with his 4/3, but seemingly wants to hold it back because one of the ways that Calcier could very easily lose this game is if that Karmic Guardian gets suited up and he doesn't have a way to take it down.
Right. Especially like both the block is an argument for and against playing Furnace Mage because it was a sign that Desengrande really wanted to save the Karmic Guardian, which could be a signal that they wanted to equip a weapon on it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he
They
won't have the
value it
opportunity
higher.
to. So, because Obliterate takes care of the Guardian.
Um, this attack is interesting. Probably going to be followed up by some kind of blocker. Yeah,
Ooh.
there's a big guy. And another obliterate for Calcier, but no sign of those Warcry triggers. I think we now have 7 stacked on top. So whatever that hits is going to be enormous.
Yeah, so Calcier finally relents, plays the Furnace Mage, can't even use it to pop the Aegis because the Cover Elite doesn't have equipment on it. And he's got some burn in hand, but his opponent's sitting at 20, so Obliterate plus Flame Blast is not exactly going to get the job done anytime soon.
Now we can't see his hand, but if okay, well, I was going to say if Desengrande is just sitting on a Vanquish, he's more or less secure in this game. I think, as the whatever enormous unit that Calcier draws wouldn't be able to bail him out if he just gets Vanquished down. But now that he's down to 1 card, if Calcier can ever draw a non-spell, he may be able to slam down a huge threat and turn the game back in his favor. However, at the
If
moment, he's definitely on the back foot.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot for Calcier. Do you start pointing the burn at face and hope that that's enough to race the attacks that you're facing down? I don't think you can afford to do that. Um, I mean, Desengrand's already got 9 attack in play, so you might have to use one of these obliterates on a unit here instead of going face and maybe trying to set up like the 3-turn kill.
I think you start by obliterating. Okay, well,
Yeah, there you go.
Calcier
Face is
thinks
the
that,
place.
yeah. Well, at
Ugh.
this point, you're committed to your game plan, though. You definitely need to point everything at your opponent's face and try to burn them out before they can kill you. That Oni Ronin's basically on blocking duty, to try to keep you alive as long as possible in order to survive through this line. My
Yeah.
ugh,
Oh,
my
jeez.
issue with this line is that he doesn't have enough power to um, have lethal with Flame Blast, even if he draws a power next turn and or draws the Fire Sigil to cast it. So he needs to survive 2 extra turns past this turn's obliterate, and can't really change gears super effectively.
Yeah, and I think he's realizing that he needs to point this obliterate at a unit and is trying to figure out which. Obviously, pointing it at the flyer means you get a little bit of damage through, but is that really relevant here? You might just need to take out the 5/6, but then how are you ever dealing with this flyer? Calcier's in a rough spot here, and it's yet to draw whatever got all of those war cries on top with this.
Hmm.
Just
I'm not
ghost
sure what the
face.
superior line is.
When in doubt, face is the place. Apparently, it's a bold strategy. I don't see how it leads to a line for victory.
I think that you have to after that last obliterate, and then
Hmm.
not drawing anything that could really change it up. The problem is, I just don't think that there's a draw that wins him the game this turn. Given
Yeah,
this board, he definitely needs to.
he needs to draw both a fire source and torch, and it's impossible to do that in one draw step.
Yeah.
Yep, Calcier
So
accident.
never drew those that Warcried unit, which was unlucky, but took an aggressive line, and it did not actually end up
Yeah,
paying off as his draws did not complement him. If he drew Fire Sigil, he would have won the game
yeah,
instead of that Rapid Shot and Banner.
yeah. It would have been interesting. He made his bed in going face and had to end up sleeping in it. But that's as we said at the start of that match, right? You're at the mercy of your top deck when you're playing a aggro, and while it seemed like those were pretty good top decks, I mean, running obliterates is great. It doesn't help when the rest of your reach can't quite get there.
Yeah, in the first game we saw that he was low on Shadow. In this game we see that he's too low on Fire in order to actually cast his Flame Blast, and both times it sort of hurt his development a bit. The Furnace Mage play didn't actually end up changing anything, as we never saw an attachment come down from Grande, but we'll have to see what happens in Game 3.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of stuff in the way of the Burn Queen units, and um, you got to get them low enough that you can take them out with the burn. But the Combray healers, and as we saw there, the Karmic Guardians, uh, our way is for Grande to bring his life total back up even after he's been taken down.
And I think these games have been a little subtle hinting at some of the fun of this format, or the intrigue of this unified constructed format, in that this Burn Queen deck doesn't have the full suite of fixing that it may want to have in terms of access to seek powers and whatever, because you have to split that between your teammates. Eternal's done a great job of giving us a lot of powerful cards and variety of decks, but there's still some staples that are tough to split up. And who knows? Maybe if you had access to all the fixing you wanted, those could have been slightly on both sides, slightly different games.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the inspirations for me in actually choosing to go with the unified team tournament. There's a lot more of the team factor at play here. Calcier not only needs to think about what his deck was going to be like when he was building this up, he needed to determine what his uh, his teammates were going to need to win their matches. You know, we see a lot of splits of stuff like decays between time decks. Seek Power and Diplomatic Seal get split up all the time across the matches, and players mostly tried to pick decks that didn't sort of overlap on too many different cards, which is why we see all these different kind of matchups that we maybe wouldn't have seen if we didn't have this unified format. I know that your team in particular, Rhino, had some interesting choices made. If you want to talk about those.
Yeah, we didn't really want to. We could have probably just ran back all of our decks essentially from last week's tournament, but as you know, Pojo and I are have a flair for the dramatic, or the showmanship of it all. So we went with some kind of off the radar cards, to put it lightly. We actually did missubmit our decks, and the card we ended up having 5 of between our list was Subvert. uh, which we probably fixed. I didn't realize he was playing one in the main board, but yeah, we had some fun with it. Irene just went with, like, we had to discuss who ended up with Seek Powers. I did, just because I needed them to cheat out my Northwind Heralds, but yeah, we had fun with it. It was a lot of fun coming up with some decks for it.
Well, I mean, you can totally understand the mistake. Seek Power is a format staple across multiple archetypes.
Yeah,
Sorry, Subvert. I mean, so
Subvert. Yeah,
having 5 is no surprise.
yeah.
But we're down into the game again, and it looks like Kelsey's got not the greatest hand in the world for an aggressive start.
Yeah, this Cabal count is it's got a lot riding on her shoulders, and it can swing into Sandstorm Titans until it gets silenced, and then it still can, but it also trades with any other unit on the board.
And Kelsey's drawn a bunch of power in his opening hand and needs to use this diplomatic seal to get a second fire, but still needs to draw more power to get that third fire in there.
Yeah.
He is able to trade off to slow down Dozen Grande's development by taking down that Initiate of the Sands, which is good because if he wasn't able to take that down there, he would be very far behind on board by the time that Countess even came down.
Yeah, yeah. Desmond still has a great play in Seraph, but at least Calcier gets to dodge maybe the Sandstorm Titan on turn 3 play by taking out that initiate. And I think that was a good play by him by using Char Chain Flail there to hit the
Yeah,
resources.
power's not ideal, but at least it's fire influence. So Calcier's able to both play the Countess this turn and set himself up for Flame Blast when he does draw it, if he does draw it. But no play from Dozen
Ooh.
Grande does make Calcier's position a little bit better.
Yeah, and because of that, he's not going to. I don't think he was going to ultimate the Countess either way here, but now he's got an interesting decision of whether or not to rapid shot to let it live, or let it trade here and go with the impending doom.
I suspect you just trade here. Even if you rapid shot, you've rapid shotted a 2-1 away, and then it'll just trade with the other 2-1 that's on board. But Kelsier
Yeah.
does not have any other units in hand and is going to need more than just this impending doom to take this game.
Yes, Calcier is praying to every god that he knows of that Desengran does not have a vanquish in hand, because if that happens, he's gonna have a tough time coming back from here.
Hmm. On the other
Okay.
hand, though, this impending doom does stabilize him a bit in that Dozen Grande can't get more aggressive this
Right.
turn specifically.
Right. The impending doom's doing 1 damage a turn to Calcier, but that's a lot better than taking the 5 that's on the board right now.
Yeah, that Dozen Grande would have been doing. This Caleb's favor draw again doesn't favor him. But you got to make a decision here. You've got the obliterate, you've got the rapid shot. Do you just start pushing damage? And how
Ooh.
much do you respect the potential Desert Marshal?
Yeah, this is a really tough spot. It's you've got to figure out, am I okay with keeping the board as is, trying to stall it out? What are you trying to draw towards? If you don't obliterate here, it's this is a rough spot with that 2 power open. This is kind of the showing off the, oh, man. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, swings, and I guess this means you just appoint the obliterate at the Seraph now and throw down and say we're racing.
Yeah, well, he's with the inferior board position in turn. Well, with less units on board and taking a damage every turn from his impending doom, sitting back really doesn't favor him in the long term, as
Right.
there's a bunch of cards that Dozen Grande can draw that are going to be a lot better than the Oni Ronins and other low drops that Kelsier can draw. But here he's actually winning the race. He's doing
Yeah.
5
No,
here.
that was a great turn there, just in terms of even having the patience to obliterate after combat, holding up the rapid shot just in case they had the Desert Marshal. And you can't just sit on this impending doom and wait for them to actually draw the answer to it. You've got to use it and hit your opponent in the face a lot, and that's what Calcier's doing.
He's not quite in the clear yet, though. Even with Rapid Shot Torch and a free attack, he doesn't close out the game next turn, and he takes 5 every turn just from the cards that are in play. So Calcier's still going to need to draw something, even just given the board that's here, in order to take down the game.
Right, and this goes back to oh man, and that body in the way. All right, not in the way anymore. Oh man, 12. I mean, that's lethal if his opponent has nothing. Oh man, he's
Do
doing
you
the math
just
right now. I mean,
send? Well,
you go for it,
the
right? 2, 9,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
There's been pauses every turn that you've got to be wary of, but I don't know if you can afford to be wary of it at this point. Like, even if they have, say, a Desert Marshal, how are you winning this game from this position by playing around it? Oh, swinging without using Obliterate.
well,
Huh.
if his opponent does not block, you can go for the Rapid Shot line, and then just obliterate face, and that
That's
kills
what
him
he
anyways.
does. Yeah.
So
Huh.
it looks like Calcier is going to take it off a non-block, barring a protect. This could be the clutchest.
Yeah.
No, no protect.
No
Okay,
protect.
so Calcier takes it.
Hmm.
And
Interesting that he opted to not, because I guess he was thinking, oh, if my opponent chump blocks here, I can just obliterate one of his other units, and this impending doom will still just finish the game at some point. Hmm.
yeah, if his
Interesting line.
opponent doesn't block, he obliterates one unit, can torch the other, and then he's just got an impending doom to their nothing, plus a rapid shot in hand. So I
Yeah.
think that just it gave him a pretty good opportunity to win the game, and a non-block by Grande allowed him to sneak just enough damage through to take down the game. Uh, I have to say though, if we did see a non-block into a protect on the obliterate, that would have been an amazing turnaround.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I almost like the obliterate pre-combat, just to kind of test the waters for a pause or anything like that. But I guess he was thinking, if his opponent does have Desert Marshal, well, no, even if you swing, I guess you would want to use the obliterate on something with more attack than the 1/4. No,
The
it's
optimal line for both casters is a lot easier to figure out when we can see both hands. Here we're just playing with what information Calcier had,
yeah,
and it was a tough
it
decision.
worked out. Yeah, I think there were a few ways to try and get lethal there, and he went with that line instead.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure what we have on screen at the moment. It looks like we'll be going to a short break, and then we'll be back to tell you guys the results of the other games that are out there, and then hopefully we'll be down to the next match. So thank you for watching. We'll be right back.